So, tonight we are doing a standalone talk. We're going to be doing something similar next 2 weeks from now, because next week is our really amazing Friendsgiving potluck. But basically, what these standalone series, they're called Elevate, and it's called Raising the Bar for Conversations About Blank, right? So last week we started this conversation about what our culture looks like. Why do we even come to youth group? What is youth group? What's the whole point of us coming here and gathering together every week? Who do we want to be? And I think a lot of the answers to those questions revolves around one really important word, and that's community. And so tonight, what I really want to talk about is elevating the bar on conversations about doing life together. But before I get into that, I want to ask you guys a question. Don't you think that some things are just scarier when we have to do them alone? No? Okay, guys, what about going and walking through a haunted house? Alone? I am just saying, there is something to think about the fact that walking through a haunted house or even texting your crush that you like them is a little bit scarier when you have to do it by yourself, right? You want your bestie next to you so that if things go south, at least you can commiserate together, right? Carnival rides. Guys, who went to the Jamboree last week? Raise your hand if you went to the Jamboree last week. So a couple of you guys did. Who has been to a sketchy carnival before? Yeah, the powwow, the Florida Fair, Strawberry Festival. So last week, I got to go with Gideon and his amazing fiance, Vanessa's way better than Gideon. Yeah, right? Love you, kids. I'm just kidding. We're best friends. But last week, I got to go and be able to go on rides. Now, if you don't know, I get very motion sick very easily, and so I get a little bit sketched out going on these also sketchy carnival rides. And we were going to go on the one ride to where it like spins in a circle, and then there's like groups of three to where it also spins like that. And so it's the thing to where you're like being knocked into the other person, right? Yeah, you guys, if you know what I'm talking about, you know, you know. If you know, you know. But I was going, and it's the three of us. We are all three adults. It is hard to fit into that tiny little thing by yourselves. And so I was like, guys, if we cannot fit on together, I am not going on this ride by myself. There's no way I'm going to torture myself by getting sick if I'm going to be on myself, because it's not fun. It's scarier. And then lo and behold, our wonderful Heaven just showed up out of nowhere. And she was like, do you have a partner? I'm like, no. And then I proceeded to squish Heaven in the carnival ride. Sorry about that, Heaven. She chose it. She chose it on the outside. But we got a ride together, and it just made that moment so much better that I got to share it with her rather than doing something by myself. And guys, things are just simply better and less frightening when we can live life together with other people, right? And I think church is kind of the same way. Guys, our faith and what we do here is a really big deal. Coming in and discovering what it looks like to believe in a God that we can't even see is really hard, right? A God that has been around for thousands of years, that we have a Bible that's over 2,000 years old, and yet we're trying to connect and have a personal relationship with this ethereal being, right? Faith comes with questions and doubts and struggles, and isn't that a whole lot less intimidating when we don't have to navigate and do that by ourselves, right? And guys, so this is why we're so intentional with ending our time together every single night before we circle up with small groups. This is why we have a big chunk of our time normally dedicated to having small groups, so that you don't have to ask those questions by yourself, so you don't have to navigate learning what it means to believe in this God on your own. I don't want church to just be a monologue to where I'm sitting here talking at you, right? I want it to be a dialogue between people doing life together and navigating those ins and outs and those ups and downs of how to be able to live your life and believe in God and mix those things two things together, right? And so maybe you might be thinking at this point, okay, Megan, I could really get behind how doing life together is really important, right? But why is this group, why is youth group, why is small groups really important? What's the point? Because maybe for you, you already have friends, And so you might be thinking, okay, but I've already got my group of friends. I have my people that I do life with. So what's the point of me coming in and having this small group together? Because I already have my group of friends that I could talk to about life stuff. Can anybody relate to that? Yeah? Maybe you're thinking, but Megan, I really don't get along with a lot of the people in my small group. And honestly, really fair, because guys, we all come from different backgrounds, different schools, different interests or hobbies or likes or dislikes, different personalities. We are all so uniquely different because it's not like we all play a sport together. It's not like we're all good at math. We don't bond over anything other than the fact that we're coming here together and trying to discover what it's like to, are we good down there? Okay, trying to discover what it's like to be able to do life together, right? Sometimes people annoy people, right? Even your best friends can annoy you sometimes. And so it's especially hard to get along with people that you don't have a ton of things in common with. Guys, you're my high schoolers or my middle schoolers down there. Let's make sure we're paying attention. Or maybe for you, it's that you just don't trust some of the people in your group. Maybe there's been some things that has happened in your small group or outside of your small groups that maybe make you feel like if you shared something deep and personal, that someone would make fun of you for it. Or make a joke or try to make light of things when it's a serious thing and that was really hard for you to share. Or someone would maybe talk about it outside of groups and you don't really want people to know about the stuff that you talk about in your small groups, and so you really just don't say anything. Maybe you're new. Maybe you haven't been around youth group a lot, or you come for just a friend, and so you don't really know your group well enough, and so you don't know how they'll react to the things that you say. I think this list can go on of the questions that we have about the importance of small groups, but ultimately, really the question is, what are we really supposed to be doing here? What's the point of youth group? Why is it so important that we have this particular group, and why is it so important that we stick around for it and that we make small groups really important? And so to answer that, I want to take us all the way back to the beginning. And I mean by the beginning, I mean the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, the first chapter, the first book of the Bible. So if you don't know, the Bible starts with the first book and it's called Genesis. And in the beginning, there's a creation story. And so in this creation story, it says, in the beginning, God created. And so it's before the world was formed, and it's basically a story about telling us how God created the world. And every time he would create something every day, he would say it was good. So he would create something and label it as good, right? The sky, good. The land, good. The light, good. This is all out of order. The animals, good, right? All of those things, good. Until he gets to the creation of us, to the first human. And he says, in this point, God looks at his creation in human form, and he said, it is not good for humankind to be alone. Did you guys hear that? The first not good thing in all of creation was being alone. And so what's the point I'm trying to get here? It's this. It's that we, as humans, are wired not to be alone. We're wired for connection and community and being together and doing life together. But I think you guys already know that, right? You guys know that because you can tell you're wired for connection by the way you feel that weird disappointment of when your friend doesn't pick up the FaceTime call, right? And you're kind of sad. You know you're wired for connection when something good happens to you, and the first thing that you want to do is tell your friend about it. You know you're wired for connection to where when you go and sit at a table and no one really sits with you, and you're kind of by yourself and it doesn't feel great, right? So we all know this. So then why does small group matter if we already have friends? Why does small group matter if we don't get along with a lot of our friends in our group? Why does small group matter if I don't have a lot of connections? If maybe there's been stuff that has happened in my groups in the past that has made me feel like I can't trust my groups? Why do we still stick around? Why do we do this? Friends, it matters because your faith matters. It matters because this isn't just a group that you're hanging out with or Snapchatting with. It is this secure, unfailing acceptance and connection with others. And so the scripture that we can pull up now too, that we're actually getting to now, is from the book of Hebrews, and has something to say about this letter. Let me say this again. So this author in Hebrews that wrote this book of Hebrews, he was writing this letter to a new group of new Christians that were trying to figure life out and trying to figure out, okay, I believe in this God, I believe in Jesus. I saw the creation of what happened when Jesus came and he rose and he died and he rose again, and my life has changed forever, so how do I navigate that? And this is what he says when they're trying to figure it out. He's saying, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. And so friends, this author is talking to a new group of Christians who are facing either death or complete exile, exclusion from their community because of their new faith in Jesus. And so out of anything that this author could have said to this new Christian community, in the face of death, in the face of persecution, in the face of everything changing as they know it, the most important thing that the writer says is don't give up on meeting and doing life together. Why is that? Why was that so important? Because I think we know at least two things from this. Two things that happens when we meet together. So the first thing is that hope happens when we meet together. And now, what is hope? Guys, it's being convinced that our future is better than maybe our right now. And I think at some point in our middle and high school lives, we're really going to need to hear that. Is that our future is going to be better than our right now, right? Guys, without hope, we don't end big world problems like racism. We don't end things like fighting global warming. We don't rescue the abused and make sure that people are being taken care of. Those actions of taking steps towards those things wouldn't happen without hope. Without hope, instead of finding a reason to fight for what is good and right, sometimes we can let evil make itself at home in our world. And we see that, right? When we start to lose hope, things seem pretty bleak. The hope that things can be different is really what motivates us to act in the first place. And it's not just hope for our world around us. Yeah, sure, there's big, huge things that we could hope for that one day down the road, maybe that we could see in our own lives. But guys, when we meet together, it reminds us that there is hope for our own lives. Hope for better days ahead. Hope that next week might be better than this week. And then the second thing we can learn from this is that love and good deeds happen when we meet together. Guys, we make each other better. We make each other stronger. Another author in the Bible says that just as iron sharpens iron, a friend sharpens a friend. Meaning that we can make each other better by being together and meeting together. Meeting together calls us up and holds us accountable to set a higher standard of what we would imagine and what we can become, right? And then maybe the most important phrase out of what the scripture is talking about is this, about this whole passage is this. It's about not giving up. Friends, the writer of Hebrew knew that it would be super tempting to kind of skip the line on the living together part of following Jesus. The author knew that meeting together would require commitment and sacrifice. The author knew the turmoil that they were in. They knew the past of what had happened to them and how it can be hard to keep on meeting together with what's happened to them in the past of that persecution, right? Guys, showing up and connecting on a regular basis requires reprioritizing your schedule and guarding your time that you guys get with your groups. Choosing kindness rather than annoyance. And also acceptance instead of exclusion. Guys, this idea of community in Hebrews is more than just a group of friends. It's more than just a group of friends meeting together, maybe playing a sports together, or just people who hang out together to make TikToks, right? We all have friends to where we go and we do a certain thing with, where they're either our TikTok friends, they're our friends who we just be able to hang out after school with, maybe they're our friends we do homework with, our friends that we play sports with. Guys, this was their ride or die group. These were the kind of friends and leaders who encouraged you, who would cheer for you, who would say the real stuff to you even when it was hard to say it, would listen when maybe you say the real stuff to them. Guys, they would love you enough to tell you what's real even if you don't want to hear it. And then stick up for you when somebody talks bad about you or tries to hurt you. That was the type of group we were talking about. It is bigger than hanging out. This is what we call community, right? And here's the deal. These people who were meeting together in their original church, this is really important because in this original church, they weren't all alike, just like we aren't all alike. They weren't all friends before they came to church. They probably didn't even know each other and they lived in the same town. And they didn't all agree on every little thing. And can I be real with you guys for a second? Part of being a mature person is knowing and understanding that you don't have to be like another person to still love them. You don't have to agree on everything that person says to still respect them. Guys, in fact, I know some of you are thinking, but Megan, you're saying these things, and this isn't what my small group sounds like, right? Those are the thoughts that could be going through your head. But guys, could you just imagine with me for a second? What if it was? And then what would it take? So the fact is, what's said in this verse can also be true in your small group experience. That's a real truth, and that is some hope that we could live with right now. Because think about it, meeting together, motivating each other towards love and good works, and encouraging each other can honestly be a reality. And let's be honest, you have to be willing to put something into it. So in other words, guys, when it comes to your small groups, you truly get in what you put out, or you get out what you put in. What this means is that what you bring to the table and how you work to make the small group a place that you want it to be is also what you get out of that too. And now I know that this stuff is super easy being said than done, right? And I know this because I've literally been right on this rug where you guys, in this same pipe and drape with my own youth pastor sitting on this stage. I was in youth group. I did middle and high school in the same exact ministry. And so I can understand how hard that is. Because guys, let me tell you, the people in my small group were nothing alike. There was popular people and there was people that were not popular. There was people who grew up with a lot and those who grew up with nothing. People who would come from different family dynamics of divorced, single parents, parents that were still together, people that were adopted and not adopted, people who had a hard time getting along with each other, people that were I had a hard time getting along with them, people that had different hobbies and interests and things, different sexual orientations. Like, we had the whole spectrum of people in my small group. And so I know how easy it is to kind of push them aside and be like, it's not worth it. But guys, those were also the people that I walked through some of the hardest points of my life with. And those are the people that were there for me in all of the moments I needed it the most. But you know what? That didn't happen just because I showed up and I hung out with the friends that I wanted to hang out with on Sunday nights. Guys, these are a few things. I have a few things that we did to make sure that we were a strong small group that I think you guys can be able to also do too. And it's something that takes time. So the first thing is to be present. Now, I'm not only just talking about committing to putting this 2.5 hours of your time every week to coming to youth group, right? I think that is a priority that we can always make. We can make sure we do our homework beforehand. We can invite our friends to youth group instead of going and hanging out with them. We could ask our parents or our families to schedule around your family stuff with them. That is some things we could do. But I'm also talking about showing up mentally and emotionally. Give it a chance. Be open to what your groups could look like, what could possibly happen, and you never know what it can when you are present. The second, and arguably the most important, is that you create a safe place. And you know that you hear this from my mouth a lot, and we talked about this last week. Guys, this one is really important. It is your job to create a safe place for every single person in your small group and not just your friends. Don't make jokes when someone is talking about something vulnerable. Maybe you should actually listen when somebody is talking rather than joking and saying a joke to your neighbor that's sitting next to you. Maybe look for the person who might be feeling like they're on the outside and inviting them into whatever you're doing with your own friends. Lovingly call someone out when they're not creating a safe place for your groups, and then inviting them in to participate in that safe place. And then the third thing, guys, is to make it personable. Remember, you get out what you put in. You can't expect somebody to share if you also don't share as well, and you don't create a place of sharing. And so you have to make the effort to get to know the people and care about them. Guys, what we did is we sent text messages to each other. We started conversations with people that we didn't necessarily know a lot about, but we made sure that they felt included. We sat with other people in our group at dinner who we might not normally sit with. So we changed it up. We made sure that we knew every single person in our group. Guys, and we didn't pretend like we didn't know each other in school. I know that you guys go to school together. I know that there's a lot of people that go to the same schools in this room. Don't pretend like you don't know them. Say hi. It's as easy as that. Acknowledge their presence. Make them feel safe in that moment and make it feel like it's a personal connection. And be willing to need to talk it out and have those hard conversations when conflicts come up. I think this is one of the most important things that my small group stuck it out and did, is we had our small group leaders mediate a lot of hard conversations between our group. I'm not saying that we were without our drama. There was so much drama in my small group. But we utilized the resources that we had, and we made sure to stick it out even when it was really hard, to keep on showing up even when it was easier to go and do other things with our friends. Guys, what would this youth group look like if we were all committed to being present, creating a safe place, and making it personal? What would your faith look like? How would your faith look different? How different could your middle and high school years look like if you had a group of people who were showing up for each other, showing up for you when your dog passes away, when a parent passes away, when your parents are getting divorced, when something bad happens and you need somebody there, you know you could count on your small group, when something good happens and you could celebrate with them? What would that look like? And then what do you need to do yourself personally to make that happen? Guys, that's what small groups, that's what youth group can be, is to be a place that is safe for every single person that walks in this door, and not just the people that come here on a regular basis. Because you get out what you put in.